Today I have a fantastic interview with a YouTuber, Mr. Cayman Vlogs, and he is an insider in Cayman Islands working in the hospitality industry. This is important because it shows you how a country like Cayman Islands, which is highly dependent on tourism for many of the people that are there, and what happens as a result, what happens with the jobs, what happens with the stores, and what happens with crime. All of that discussed here and more. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. I have Evan from Mr. Cayman Vlogs here to talk about what's going on in the Cayman Islands. Evan, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So obviously there's a lot to talk about here, and the reason I have you on is basically because I've seen your videos before. I think they're great. I think they're fantastic. And all throughout this period of time, we have seen changes happen to different islands, different areas that are affected heavily by tourists, and of course, the lack of tourists. So that's kind of where I wanted to start today. You're in the hospitality industry, and I just wanted to, if you wouldn't mind, just give a quick little introduction about your particular situation.
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a sincere pleasure being on the channel on this video. So yeah, my situation is I'm a Canadian citizen living in Grand Cayman. I've been here for almost 6 years. I work in the hospitality industry. I worked at two major hotels on the island, the Marriott Resort and the Ritz-Carlton. And currently I'm working for a different hotel called Hampton by Hilton, which is a new hotel that's opening on the island. I'm currently waiting for my start date, which is another week. I'm currently in quarantine because I just got back from Canada, a nice little trip, and I'm waiting for my job opportunity, but it's been a unique experience for myself. I've been here for almost 6 years. The past year and a half has been challenging. It's been different. Once the pandemic started about a year and a half ago, I was unemployed for about, I would say 5 months, which is a long time. During then, we were in lockdown and we had restrictions, but eventually, as our borders closed, the economy was going down quite hard. People were losing jobs, myself included. Eventually, got rehired, which was fantastic because they had a isolation quarantine program happening at the Ritz-Carlton for returning residents from overseas. So I was back at work maybe in September of 2020. I was working for about another 5-6 months, and unfortunately, my hotel, the Ritz-Carlton, it was going under renovation. So I had to resign, got a new job, but I've been kind of waiting it out. It's been a tough time here in Cayman, regards of the economy. People have lost a lot of jobs, locals and expats alike. We had a exodus of people leaving the island, going back to their native lands, like in the Philippines, India, US, Canada, UK. So a lot of people left because they lost their jobs. So they had no alternative. They couldn't really stay because, first of all, it's very expensive here. Myself, I stayed because I have a significant other who was working at the time, who still is. So I was able to stay and wait it out. The government initiated certain things to help out people. First of all, they allowed you to withdraw from your pension account, which everybody pays a pension while working in the Cayman Islands. So we had our savings, which we could use off of, which is good and bad, obviously. They introduced some other measures to keep the economy safe and people safe. And then today, our borders are still closed. They're looking to reopen hopefully in September. But that's a requirement of the population to be 80% vaccinated. So we're still waiting. We're hoping for the best. But so far, it's a lovely place. But yes, no jobs at the moment. A lot of hospitality jobs have been eliminated. A lot of restaurants have closed down. Hotels are barely operating. So it's been tough, but we're hoping for the best.
You answered probably half of my questions here, so that's fantastic. We got it all sorted out. But what I want to talk about is, you look around the United States, you look around different countries around the world, and because of what's happening here, we've got so many stores that have closed. Along with the store closures, of course, the jobs go away. So, are you seeing many examples of the store closures? Obviously, you talked about the hotels as well, but stores around you that are simply just gone, and maybe there are for lease signs there now or boarded up, and so on.
Yes, there's plenty of examples of that happening on the island. A lot of restaurants on 7 Mile Beach, for instance, where I shoot majority of my videos over the past few months. A lot of restaurants have had to close because, first of all, they rely primarily on tourism, especially cruise ship tourism and overstay visitors who arrive by air. Especially there's one place which I can mention, which is just down the road, actually. It's called Calico Jack's. It's a famous beach bar, which attracted a lot of cruise ship passengers. Also, people were staying in hotels. It's a great place. It's still there, but there's like fences around. It's vacant. It looks terrible. And there's another few places down the stretch of beach. One called Royal Palms, which is another kind of beach bar. They rely heavily on the tourism from cruise ships, from overseas. From overstay visitors at hotels. So that closed as well. These places are closed, but I would assume they would reopen because majority of these places are owned by a company called DART, which is one of the biggest employers on the island. DART owns the famous Camana Bay, which is in kind of central on the island. They have clothing stores, restaurants, shopping. It's a massive employer on the island. So a lot of these places have closed, but this company owns a lot of their properties. So I think they will reopen, but right now there's a lot of examples of these restaurants going belly up because of the border closure and lack of tourism. And also one dive shop in particular that I know of, because Cayman Islands is a renowned dive destination. We have great diving off the shores of this island, picturesque waters, beautiful marine life. And one dive shop called Eden Rock Dive Center was closed down for good, unfortunately. I think back maybe a year ago or so. I'm not sure if it's going to reopen, but there's a lot of businesses, restaurants that could not go on because of the border closure.
Evan, you're making us jealous here, talking about the beautiful beach, the 7 Mile Beach. But but I think what I wanted to kind of have an insight into is, as you were alluding to here, the difference between, let's say, 2019 to 2021 with these tourist areas. And what I find is, just because you have obviously very wealthy people that are located in this area, it's still not enough to stimulate the economy where you can have all these businesses staying open and people shopping and so on. You need the general economy, you need the middle class to keep the economy strong. And certainly right now, without a lot of these people coming in, it seems like that's not the case.
Yes, I would say there's been a massive exodus of the middle class here in Grand Cayman because we have you have the upper class. I would say you have wealthy individuals here, and then you have the poor lower class, which I would say majority are local Caymanians. The higher class are people from overseas who might have gotten their citizenship or the PR, the permanent residency, who came here just to reside. They wanted to maybe leave Canada, the US, the UK for tax purposes, and they moved here to move their money here. So there's definitely a disparity between upper and lower class. Right now, I would say that the economy is operating very barely, like restaurants. Some restaurants are busy, some hotels are busy on the weekends because you have wealthy individuals who like to go away for what we call a staycation because they can't obviously go easily to the US. They can, but they will have to quarantine. So they stay on the island. They go to the Kimpton Seafire, which is one of our beautiful luxury hotels on the island. They go to other resorts, they go to other restaurants and spend their money. But the lower class, they're relying heavily on the government. I would say the middle class, which is primarily, I would say majority of expats have left the island because there's no jobs. There's no opportunity right now because all the jobs that are available right now, the government is focused on hiring the local people, as a lot of countries do, to try and hire the local citizens.
For sure. I think this is an important note to interject here for all the Money GPS subscribers to remember that while Cayman has sort of the financial side of things, they've got the hedge funds and so on. They are also reliant on tourism, but this applies to different places, not just islands. You look around where one particular one particular part of the United States, for instance, may be heavily reliant on oil. And suddenly, if oil drops to zero, well, now that whole region is going to have a problem. So it's always very wise to have more than one source of income, source of employment. And this kind of teaches us that lesson, I believe.
Yes, definitely. Cayman relies heavily on tourism, but that's not the only area of the economy that stimulates the country. We have property sales have been going through the roof because a lot of people have been coming here. A lot of individuals from overseas, different countries, have been coming here because they see like we've had no transmission of this pandemic virus for the past year. So people have been coming here, buying property. So we have the real estate, which has been kind of helping our economy, stimulating the economy. We also have construction too, which is very evident on my videos. I always show like there's this one construction site that's happening just down my road. I'm not sure what's being built there. I think it's maybe another hotel or some shopping areas, but there's always more homes being built on this island. I would say that the construction industry has been very supportive of the economy, but giving jobs, hiring locals especially. Real estate has been good too. Our financial sector has always been a key of the economy for many years because this is a very it's overseas territory, but it's also like they say a tax haven, quote unquote. A lot of companies have offices here, a lot of US companies, companies from the United Kingdom, Canada. So you have a lot of those companies. Also, law firms, insurance companies have offices here in Georgetown, which is our main town, where we find all the offices for KPMG, PwC, Price Waterhouse Coopers, and other banks. Like we have Butterfield, which is a bank that's based out of Bermuda, but they have office here in Cayman. They have offices in Guernsey, pardon me, in the Channel Islands, also in Switzerland. So you have a lot of banks operate here too for certain tax reasons.
And that really brings me to my next point here, because a lot of people on my channel, they're talking about the taxation system and the way it works. And of course, I break that down. And I think it's important, just if you wouldn't mind, spend a little time, because from what I understand about Cayman Islands, there's no property tax, there's no income tax, there's no wealth tax, there's no inheritance tax. And people ask, how are we going to pay for the roads? How are we going to pay for the education and so on? So how does the taxation system work? Very, of course, in a simplified version, how does it work in Cayman Islands?
Of course, yeah. So here in Grand Cayman, there is no income tax. So what you make is what you make. The only thing for myself, when I get my pay slip from my previous job, the only thing that's deducted is your health insurance, which you pay into, and your pension. Right now, people working in Cayman don't pay pension right now. There's been a pension holiday because it saves money for the employee and also the employer. That pension holiday has been extended to the end of this year, December 31st, 2021. As I said, no income tax. So people, what they make is what they make. The only thing is deducted is their health insurance and pension. Regardless of that, how government pays for instance, the roads, the infrastructure, all that is when a tourist comes here from, let's say, Canada or the United States. When they go to a hotel, they pay a 13% tax on their room, which is what the government is collecting from all the hotels around the island. So that has been a big source of income for the government that helps to pay for a lot of infrastructure needs, like everything that they need is based on the 30% tax that they get from people coming in. And obviously, since our border has been closed, there's been no source of income from that. They primarily rely on we also have called a stamp duty. If you buy property here in Cayman, you pay a stamp duty, I think, of 12%. We initially buy the house. After that, you don't pay any property tax like you have in Canada or the US. After you pay that stamp duty, I believe it's 12.5%. That's it. And other taxes like that, when you go to the grocery store here, or if you go anywhere and you go to a liquor store, you go to a clothing store, you buy something, you don't see a tax on your receipt. But a lot of these companies, supermarkets, liquor stores, hotels, when they buy something overseas and it gets shipped here, the government charges them a certain percentage, and they collect that fee for them to, for the government to spend on infrastructure, so on and so forth, education. So there's no direct taxation, but you will notice that prices are quite high here. When you go to the grocery store, you can easily spend $100 very quickly, and you will not see it in your receipt, in your bill, but there is a tax error because, as again, government here they charge for items being brought in from overseas, stamp duty on houses. When we used to have tourism here in 2019, you would have individuals coming here for vacation, they would pay a 13% tax on their room. And right now, the government is collecting any of that, which is unfortunate. So the government has been reliant on, for instance, there was mentioned this in the news, I think it was about 6 months ago, that 5 of the major banks here gave the government a loan of credit loan of, I think it was like $350 million from 5 different banks, because, you know, the government's also been introducing this stipend, which is kind of, I would say, unemployment insurance for the locals here. They've been giving each individual who's unemployed in the tourism sector 1,200 CI per month, which is equivalent of, I say, $1,500 per se. And they've been handing that out to individuals who've been unemployed, who have lost their jobs due to the start of the pandemic. And that's been affecting government quite often because they have to give money to all these individuals, and they have no other source of income. Like the tourism has been a big income for the government for many years, and that's kind of dried up. And we're waiting for that to restart, to have our borders open, which is still to be determined. So
interesting. One of the last things I want to talk about is essentially, you know, the crime and the safety, how it differs from, let's say, 2019 to 2021. Yes. Because of course, and you can elaborate, if people don't have work, what starts to happen, you know, do things start to devolve and so on. And we're getting, I think, a prime example of this right now in these areas that are affected by tourism, because there's a lot of people, a high percentage of the people who suddenly don't have that source of income coming in anymore. If you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I would say there's been definitely an increase in crime here since 2019. You know, we have this news outlet called Loop. It's a kind of a Caribbean news network, but they also focus on Grand Cayman. And there's been a lot of shootings in the past. Before I left here on July 13th, even the week before, there's been like a shooting every other night. You know, people get pretty desperate here because the lack of tourism. You know, a lot of locals kind of rely on like tour operators. They show the tourists around. And so when people don't have any jobs, they get pretty desperate and they start shooting people. Burglaries have increased, especially violence at like restaurants and bars, but mostly in late night situations, which is very unfortunate. But people get pretty desperate. There's definitely been a lot of car thefts, like breaking into cars at certain restaurants at night. So people have definitely gotten very desperate. And when people are desperate, they go to extreme measures. They break into property, break into cars and try and steal whatever they can to provide for their families. So it's been very unfortunate because this island is very well known for their safety. You know, I would say it's one of the safer islands in the Caribbean. Like, for instance, compare it to our neighbor in Jamaica. Jamaica I love the island, but they have terrible amounts of crime there. And this island has experienced a wave of crime, which is very unfortunate. But I think that has a result of the lack of jobs that people have. And I think we pride ourselves as a very safe destination. You can walk in the streets, not fear for your well-being, your safety. We're a very safe island, very modern infrastructure. We have an incredible police force called the Royal Cayman Islands Police Force Service, which is very fantastic. So you come here, it's a very safe island, but in recent weeks and months, it's been there's been a lot of shootings and thefts and stuff. It's very unfortunate, but I think that has a direct relation to lack of jobs that they have here, and people are just very desperate. And when people are desperate, they go to extreme measures.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I wanted to, of course, just get everybody to check out your channel. Take a look at all the beach videos. Take a look at how fantastic the beautiful view of 7 Mile Beach is, and where exactly can they go to find you, and as well all your social media.
Yeah, so if people want to get in contact with me, look me up on Facebook. Evan Pyles, my full name. Again, if you look at my videos on YouTube, you can always comment in the comment section. If you have any questions, you can always, I believe I've linked my email address. So if people have any questions on, for instance, they want to move here to work, or if they want a vacation here, you can always contact me via any of my social media outlets or my email. Anybody has questions, you can always contact me. Unfortunately, the border situation is still very uncertain. So a lot of folks, I've been having a lot of customers who I've met at my time working at the Ritz-Carlton, and the the Marriott Resort here. A lot of folks have been going to other destinations right now, like Turks and Caicos, which is another British overseas territory, which is located pretty much west of Miami, right by the Bahamas. Their borders are open. They're having tourism right now. Like it's also Aruba, which is a big destination for Americans. Cayman is one of the main islands that has that our borders are still closed, which is very unfortunate. So it's a struggle. We're waiting for our government to open our borders, but they said the safety of our citizens is paramount. So they don't care of the financial cost of that, looks like. So they're still waiting for a safer alternative for a border reopening. I hope it will be soon, because for myself, it would be nice to be working back in normal times, because the hotel industry is very big here, and restaurants too. They've been suffering quite a lot. Also, taxi drivers, tour guide operators who rely on tourism have been suffering a lot. So hopefully everybody can visit beautiful Grand Cayman soon. It's a lovely destination. Direct flight from Toronto is about 4 hours. So we're located south of Cuba and west of Jamaica. So it's a beautiful island, and I hope everybody has a chance to visit us soon. So we look forward to your arrival.
Excellent. Thank you very much for all your insight today, from myself, from the subscribers. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be on this show. Thank you.